Our next guest has a very unique story, and he has put it all into a heartfelt memoir. It's called Fly on the Wall. And in this book, Bill Pugin shares 5 decades of his dedication to the deaf community as an American Sign Language interpreter. His travels and expertise allowed him to work with celebrities, presidents, and all the elite. I want to welcome Bill Pugin to our city tonight.
Thank you, Lita. Nice to be
Oh,
here.
oh, it's great. I loved your book. It wasn't, I didn't know what to expect. And I think one of the things, the biggest thing I learned is that there is so many differences in the deaf community. Number one, and I'm going to ask you about this, all the different sign languages in all the different countries. That was a shocker to me. So, why don't we start with that? Like, was that something that surprised you as you started out on your career?
No, it didn't really surprise me because I have a deaf sister and I learned early um, the language that ASL stands for American Sign Language.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding people that think that it's a universal language, that the A in ASL is American Sign Language. So if you go to England, you use BSL, which is British Sign Language. And it's different in every country because language is culture. Is how I usually like to describe it succinctly. Language is culture. So every culture has its own language, including a manual sign language. So
Wow.
you would think that it would all be the same, but if we use the same sign language, I think everybody in the world would just learn it, and then we would travel the world and sign to each other. But it is very, very different in every country. And even though we speak English in England, the culture is different than in America. And the signs are very different. You might be able to travel to another country and do this, and somebody guesses that's a baby, or do this and they'll guess that's cry. But drive. But other than that, very different.
Well, that was fascinating. Now, you started your career you weren't, well, I guess it took you by surprise going that direction. Can you share a little bit of that story with us?
Well, yeah, I'm the youngest of 4 kids in my family, and my sister Marianne is the second oldest. So she's 8 years older than I, and she lost her hearing at 3. So by the time I was born and came to be a gurgling, babbling baby, she was already deaf. She lost her hearing at 3. So I only knew her as my older deaf sister, and I was fascinated by her. Even as a young kid, I realized that she struggled to communicate with the family. Nobody learned sign language until I did at 17. And then my other sister went the next year to learn to sign. And I realized that even as a very young boy, it just didn't seem fair that the burden of communication was always put on my sister's shoulders. She had to lip read. She had to struggle with speech if she didn't know how to say a word. It was all sort of on her. And I never thought it was fair. Even as a young 4-year-old, I thought, this doesn't seem right. So when she would come home from school, she was sent to a school for the deaf in the 5th grade, I believe it was. She would bring home classmates, and I would watch them communicate. And I was so envious. I wanted to know what made them laugh. What were they talking about? It was a secret language. And I was determined to learn that language. And 50 years after starting to study it, here I am. And I have been an interpreter for 50 years. And she and I are very close because I did learn her language and learned about her culture and her community, and never looked back. I can't believe time has gone this quickly.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you've had a very full life. Not that we're ending it here, but not only did you learn not only did you learn sign language, but you became the top of your field. You actually even started a company. But I have to say, it's so funny, interspersed with you are a fairly well-known actor as well as performer, dancer. You had this whole sideline alongside, but you always came back to that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I was always a little boy that loved to sing and dance. So I was in children's theater. And when I got older, I realized I still had that skill. I still had that love to perform. And sign language sort of helped me do that because you're present, you're out there, and you're performing sort of for your audience. And I was able to combine my love of interpreting and sign language with music. So at a very young age, I was doing shows in sign language with music, signing songs. And I think the message that I want to always go back to in the book was that I always said yes to things. Anytime anything was presented to me, I said yes, even if it scared me. So one of the things that was presented to me at a young age when I was 21 was the opportunity to work on a cruise ship as a singer dancer, and I did that. I just grabbed it. Somewhere in my brain I thought, when am I going to get this opportunity to travel the world and get paid for it and sing and dance in front of thousands of strangers every week? So I said yes, and that lasted for almost 7 years. That took me away from my interpreting, but it honed my ability to feel comfortable in front of thousands of people on a microphone. And every opportunity that I said yes to seemed to lead to something bigger, better, grander, more exciting, which enabled me to write a book that is chock full of kind of bizarre, strange results of my saying yes.
Absolutely. And you've met all kinds of celebrities, as I mentioned, royalty, Princess Diana. That's a great, I'm going to save that for people to buy the book and read it because it's really fascinating.
Oh, good, good.
It just goes on and on, the people. But the person that I have to mention is Marlee Matlin. That is somebody that you worked a long time with. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
Well, Marley and I are great friends. We were just on a Zoom call this morning before this call, and we are very good friends. She doesn't live that far from where I live, about an hour away. But we met the year she won her Oscar for Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God. I was teaching song signing at the Music Center for a group called VSA, Very Special Arts. And they had used me a couple of years in the past and every year since then to teach little kids how to sign songs. They had various tents set up at the Music Center, and there was face painting and there was other things for kids. And my tent was song signing. And that year, the host, Lauren Twees, who played Julie McCoy, the cruise director of the Love Boat, I had worked with her on board Princess Cruises. It's a very small, it's little, incestuous group in my life. It's a small circle of people that I seem to stay in contact with. But Lauren came to my tent with the guest of honor that year, which was Marley. And Marley had just won the Oscar, and peripherally, I saw them walk in, and I thought, "Hey, boy, Marley Matlin is here. Don't screw this up."
Oh,
And I did my thing, and she really liked it, and came over, and we hit it off like we had been old pals. And that was, oh my gosh, how many years ago? How many decades ago was that? And since then, we have remained great friends. We've worked together on 28 of her projects, 28 film and TV shows. I've traveled the world with her from almost all the provinces in Canada. We've worked from BC all the way to New Brunswick,
wow.
and in between Ontario, Alberta, Quebec, and pardon me. We have remained great friends. I was her interpreter for her pregnancy of her first of four kids, all through her Lamaze classes, and actually at Cedar Sinai for the birth of her daughter Sarah. And I felt honored. And I did tell her, Marley, I love you, but if you do have other kids, please find another interpreter. This just is not my thing. And
No.
so she did. She did. She found
Yeah.
another interpreter for her other three children.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, we've had a very special relationship. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I had a book signing here in Palm Springs, and she came, and we had about 60 people at the book signing.
Wow.
And it was such a great event because Marley and I have known each other, like I said, for years and years. And three people came up afterwards and said, "You two have to go on the road. You two have to do your shtick is so funny because we have this great banter back and forth. And I would start a story and she would end the story, and vice versa. And she'd get up, and we just had so much fun because we've known each other that long and that well."
Okay, well, we'll hold you to that, to getting on the having a road show. Bill and Marley. Actually, yeah, it sounds like a show already.
Appearing nightly, Bill and Marley. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Any last little things to fill us in? I'm gonna prompt you on this. That I learned a lot in your book about the difference between small letter D deaf and big letter D deaf. Can you, for our audience, just as an education, just as we wrap up here?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that. I mean, first of all, putting it out that sign language is not universal. That's very important to know. And the second thing is that the little d deaf refers to hearing loss. A deafened adult, or if we're talking about deafness in general, a hearing loss. The capital D for deaf relates to the deaf culture, somebody who uses ASL as their main form of communication, who identifies with the culture, who may have attended a school for the deaf growing up, who really are part of a community that involves sign language and has a shared experience with a shared language. That's really what culture is. So I made sure I wanted to differentiate just the word deaf or deafness with giving honor and respect to those people who are in that culture, in that community. And then I use the capital D deaf.
Wonderful. Well, that was it was great to read that in the book, and everything about your book, it was entertaining and it was very educational in that side. It makes me want to learn sign language, but that's a whole
Oh,
other side of my life. Um, Thanks for
terrific.
joining us. I'm going to encourage everybody. I'm going to hold the book up here. Bill Pugin, Fly on the Wall. What an interesting book. It's not just for sign language. It's just a great read overall, and I encourage people to pick that up. Where can they find this, Bill?
First of all, thank you so much. They can find it on Amazon.com. They can find it
Perfect.
on Barnes and Noble barnesandnoble.com or bnn.com. It's sold through Barnes and Noble, the online store, and also Amazon.com. And hopefully soon will be in bookstores. We're working in that direction.
In a bookstore near you, and then
In a bookstore near you.
the show on the road.
Oh my
Thanks
God,
so
I'm
much.
so busy.
Thanks so much. Well, your life has always been busy. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So
Me
again,
neither. I hope not.
I hope not too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show.